The very back of the gray hymnal that is in the chair in front of you, there is a large section of readings and prayers, some that you will hear used on any given Sunday morning from time to time here at All Peoples. Among these words is a quote from the Indian revolutionary Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi said, "If someone with courage and vision can rise to lead, the winter of our despair can, in the twinkling of an eye, be turned into the summer of hope." Now, in the front of that same hymnal, you will find a page with a list of sources that we draw on for inspiration in our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Number 2 on that list of sources is words and deeds of prophetic women and men who would challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Now, that hymnal was published in 1993. That is over 3 decades ago. And who we are and how we express ourselves as religious people has changed quite a lot since that time. Less than a year ago, Unitarian Universalists from all across our country voted to change those words that are printed in our hymnals. Together, we chose to adopt a new statement about what inspires us in our quest to learn and grow in spirit. This new version of our sources no longer uses the phrase prophetic women and men, and instead affirms that we draw on direct experiences of mystery and wonder and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings from a variety of histories, contexts, and cultures. Of course, these understandings are and have always been conveyed to us through words and actions of people from our past and our present. Often the people who revealed this wisdom and this courage to us did so through the example of how they lived. Now, in many religions, it is customary to revere specific people who have been formally recognized within the tradition. In Christianity, there are those declared saints. In Judaism and Islam, those labeled as prophets. In Buddhism, there are the bodhisattvas. And in native traditions, there are sages and holy ones. In secular society, we often label these people as heroes. Now, in Unitarian Universalism, we do not have any specific list of people who are to be revered. We strive to be open to potentially finding inspiration and direction in the lives of a vast diversity of humanity. When it comes to figuring out who falls into that category of prophetic, I think it's kind of like what Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart so famously said about pornography. He said, "I know it when I see it." Now, this is Black History Month, and so I've been thinking a lot about some folks who fall into that category for me. I know it when I see it. People like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Jesse Jackson. Within our own UU tradition, we can hold up the names of Joseph Jordan, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, Whitney Young, and Margaret Moseley, among others. In times like we find ourselves right now, when the heavy weight of oppression feels so present, so real, I find it helpful to remind myself of the lives and the stories of others who in the past endured persecution and hardship, people who stuck by their values and their vision of a better way of being. Now, do you ever read about some of your heroes? Listen to their words, imagine their lives, and wonder about yourself? Do you admire their actions and quietly think, could I do that? Would I do that? If the moment came and the times called for it, do I have that in me? Those we most remember in history are often people whose courage and commitment seem to be beyond what we think the average person is capable of, beyond what we think we might be capable of. Now, I saw a meme the other day on social media, and Brody's going to show it to you here. It is this picture of two squirrels, and it says, Nutmaste, the crazy in me honors the crazy in you. Now, I will tell you that I don't use words like crazy or nuts because I'm very aware that they have way too often been used to disrespect and dismiss people with real mental illness. But at the same time, I did find that funny. And I think it's because it expresses that we are all stressed and anxious and confused at times. And sharing in that can be a very sacred thing to do. That's also a clever play on the traditional Indian greeting, Namaste, which means the divine spark in me honors the divine spark in you. Today, I am wondering if we all carry that inner light, that inner wisdom within us. How do we let it out? How do we become the inspired people that we revere? Where does the strength to do the right thing in hard times come from? Is potential greatness truly inherent and inborn? Is it always waiting inside us all the time? Or is it the web of connections? Is it the relationships that we have that bring it forth? What does our religion tell us about all this? Well, the great 20th century UU theologian James Luther Adams wrote that there are certain characteristics which define our perspective on religious matters and inform the way that we go about addressing such questions of identity. And among these, Adams said that our faith is always striving to be relevant and timely, responsive to the realities of life right now. If you had walked into this church, or probably any Unitarian Universalist church 40 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago, one of the central messages that you probably would have heard from this pulpit and in the classrooms and all over the place, over and over again, was one of personal empowerment. At that time, we were a religion that was almost entirely about individual freedom. Freedom from restrictive doctrines and dogmas. Freedom to choose our own beliefs. Freedom to be and to act the way we saw fit. The message was simple. You have the power to decide for yourself. And you are the one in the driver's seat of your life and your spirituality. At that time, our congregations were focused on addressing the need that so many of us have to break free of communal conformity and to imagine that spirituality could be outside of an orthodox religious box. This message of freedom and personal agency runs deeply through our history, from the very beginnings of Universalism and Unitarianism. But as times have changed, so have we. Because as Adams said, we strive to be responsive and to stay relevant. Today, I think that more and more, Unitarian Universalism has shifted its emphasis from that principle of individual authority to the reality of our interdependence. In response to a 21st century culture where distant families and 50-hour work weeks, the internet, and the disappearing social safety nets, where all those things are the norm, our church, our movement has given voice to the holiness of community and of connection. As the challenges and realities of a multicultural society tempt some to turn away, to turn against others, and as the idolatry of comfort and consumption push us towards a self-centeredness that shields us from the pain around us, Unitarian Universalism offers up an alternative to isolation, a better way. We declare that we are all part of a beautiful and mysterious web of existence. And it is these connections and the reality of our interdependence that forms us, that shapes us, that makes us into who we are. The ties to and of community are what sustains us, what drives us, what inspires us, what brings out the greatness within us. This is a moment in history when it is becoming increasingly apparent that we are either going to all have to come together or we are all going to go down together. And the truth of that message must be heard. We need to try to live by it. We need to witness it for others and for ourselves every day. The ability to hold on to our values and to hang on to our vision of love and compassion amid the extremism and the tyranny happening right now is not something that any of us can do alone. But it is not something that we can wait for others to do for us. In these critical times, we are asked to be those prophetic people, to be them ourselves. And the power to do that comes from community. It also comes from within us as well. You know, there is divinity, goodness, compassion, love, and courage in here, in you, and in the world. We just need to unleash it. And it is within those supports, those connections of a beloved community like this, where we can listen to and hear that call, that voice, that part of us that needs to speak. And we can let it blend with the holy sounds of others. You know, we idolize so many people in our history, but we always have to remember that none of them did it alone. Rosa Parks did not act by herself. She refused to sit on the back of that bus because she had been trained to protest by a whole community of civil rights leaders. Harriet Tubman did not save lives and lead others to freedom by herself. She was part of a vast network of people dedicated to offering refuge and help to enslaved people. Jesse Jackson ran for president with the backing of a rainbow coalition. Yet each of these people, and so many others, from every place and every culture in every time, are remembered and are idolized because they tapped into that divine light within them. And they did not refuse to do what they could do. When you see and hear and read about some extraordinary person's story of courage and commitment. And you wonder, do I have that in me? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. When Gandhi said, if someone with courage and vision can rise to lead, the winter of our despair can, in the twinkling of an eye, be turned into the summer of hope. He was not talking about himself. He was talking about us, about me and about you, about all of us. Because Gandhi knew that we've got it in us. And we need to know that as well. Amen. And so may it be.